Good morning, everybody. What's going on?
Happy Saturday morning. Guys, we wanted to make a video. This is a big video for us. It's one we've been waiting to make for a long time. We wanted to tell you the top 3 things that we would now change and will be changing about our van build. And the reason this is coming out right now is because we are about to redo our van. So we've been thinking about a lot of these things and thinking more conceptually how we redesign. And we came up with the 3 biggest ones that you should be considering before you actually build your van. These are things that you should just take into account. We did not take into heavily into account. And it's part of the reason why we are redesigning. Also, guys, really wanted to quickly slip in there that this video is sponsored by Squarespace. We'll talk about that a little bit more right at the end of the video.
So, number 1, this is probably the biggest one for us.
This is what is pushing our redesign.
I would say, is seating.
Yep.
And a good table situation, and for 2 reasons. Number 1, for hosting. That was not something we really expected going into it. I never thought I would be hosting in a van. That seems crazy, but it's totally doable. And I think after hanging out with Eamon and Beck so much, it was like, oh yeah, of course we want to have people over. We want to go on camping trips with friends who, have the ability to borrow their dad's camper for a second, or things like that. And then we can have enough space in here to host. We're also planning on having a guest bed, and that will be exciting because we have a lot of friends and a lot of siblings that we'd love to take on a little adventure.
So when you're thinking about seating and really what makes something homey, it's somewhere you can really relax and chill out. We were really focusing on the essentials of living, right? So say cooking is really important, sleeping is really important. Mostly those 2, right? So we have a really huge kitchen space. We have a good space for our electric setup. We have a good space for our storage and a good space for our sleeping. It's okay, we checked all the big living boxes.
True.
But the most key thing is always where you spend your time and where you relax.
Yeah.
And what we found is we built so towards efficiency that we did not build in those comfy spaces where we can just kick back and read a book, and where we can just kick back and do some work and really feel comfortable in our home.
Yeah.
And because of that, on average afternoon, we're not hanging out in our van, we're hanging out in a coffee shop, or we're hanging out in a park, or we're hanging out wherever. And it's totally fine to do that, right? It's part of van life. But another part of van life is really feeling comfortable in your home. And I feel like sometimes the main things we're doing in our home is cooking and eating and sleeping and doing it something revolving around storage, right? It's not like hosting or just vibing out. I'd
love to have a space where we can work, or we can sit and just enjoy our home together, sit and watch a movie together, or just random life things, because I think we went into it thinking that we'd be more claustrophobic than we did, than we are. We're not really claustrophobic in our van at all, because we can stand up, we can get around each other no problem, so that's not an issue. So we actually do want time to spend in our van. Whereas before we kind of assumed we'd be out doing things, adventuring, working in coffee shops or stuff like that. So I think that's the biggest reason we'd love to have some more seating. And
in the spirit of that, not only seating, but we also want a really good table. And this seems like an extra detail, but the table is so important because we built a table as an afterthought. We just couldn't quite find a design and finally threw one together. That was not a good decision, because the table is sort of what you need to build around. Because it is so central, right? That's where people are eating together. It's where people are working together. It's the center of the space. So when we redesign, we are going to be having a table very central to our space, and the seating area very open. Right as soon as you walk in, you know where to sit. You know where everyone's going to be hanging out. And I think that should make our space much more comfortable for hosting, and in turn much more comfortable for living in for ourselves and just vibing on it.
Thing number 2 is thinking about all the possibilities of weather that you're going to need to climate control for. So when we were building our van, we were in very, very hot Texas, where not a drop of rain ever fell. And so we weren't thinking about leakage. We weren't thinking about any of that. We were just thinking, how are we going to ventilate so that we can keep cool?
It's true.
And so we didn't do a very good job of sealing things. We did okay, but it wasn't that was super, super important.
It wasn't good enough for living in a cold, we would not survive a winter in this current build.
Exactly.
A cold climate.
for instance, we met up with some people in Seattle who were building a van, and all they were thinking about was making sure that nothing leaked.
It's true.
Because they were in Seattle and it rained constantly.
Every day, yeah.
And so, so it's kind of interesting to see where people are building their vans and how that influences the decisions that they're making for climate control.
So true.
I would say really think about all the places that you're going to travel to, whether it's rain, snow, sunshine, whatever.
Right.
Make sure that you're set up for all of the elements.
Because some people we know in Texas literally will just like leave doors or windows open all the time, right? You've got to think there's whole regions of the country that you're going to be limited by if you can't survive there realistically. So heat is going to be was our first thing that we ran into that was very difficult, right? We expected that one. We didn't expect the level of intensity. So just a thought there, you want to make sure you have like a cross breeze going through the van. We're thinking about putting an extra window in just to create that breeze, right? The second thing is obviously cold. We didn't do as good of a job on insulation as we would. Our seals, our rubber seals on the van aren't as good, and at the time we didn't have a good tent. So we've been working our way there with the cold, but we still obviously haven't gotten that down. And a lot of people just end up putting in an S-bar heater. So it's something to think about. How fit do you want to be for the cold? Third thing would be wetness, like Aubry was saying. Whether that's just humidity that's going to warp your wood, it's going to give you some different problems. Whether it's the leakage is huge, or snow is going to be tough on your tires, right? So you want to think about humidity, heat, and cold. I think are the three biggest things to really consider, and just think about every scenario, right? So a few things we are going to be doing to fix that problem. We're going to be installing an S-bar heater, which is the top of the line when it comes to exactly what you need to heat. We're also fixing our insulation so that we're much more cold proof. When it comes
and heat proof.
And heat proof, it's true. And then with the leakage, we're going to be putting, we just put standard caulk before, and that just wears the time. So we have specific tape that we'll link in the video that we're going to be using, and specific 3M sealant that is very heavy duty and should prevent leakage. So again, all those, they can seem like afterthoughts while you're building. You're rushing, you're ready to get through with installing the fantastic van. You're really sick of that, or you're really sick of just doing insulation. But remember, it's going to be 100 times harder to retake that floor back up and add other insulation than it will be to just throw it right in right then. The third thing is designing your storage around what you actually own. I really, really recommend taking some test trips with other cars, with vans, with whatever you have, before you actually build your storage, because it's going to be interesting when you get on the road. You need things you didn't expect, and you don't need things that you expect to need, right?
That's true.
As you figure out what you actually need, you figure out what your storage setup really needs to be like. So for instance, we created a ton of space in our garage. So much space, right? But it isn't maximized to the things we have, and we're about to be maximizing it a lot more, right? So we built it tall enough for our bikes, but then there's a ton of wasted space right beside our bikes, right? Where we don't use those last top 2 or 3 feet.
Or it's hard to get to things because things are stacked on top of each other.
Exactly.
It's the same with this pantry that you guys might have seen in some other videos. It's massive, it's huge, and we can fit so much food in our house, and we love it. But it's so hard to find things because it's so massive, and we don't have a place for our grains, and we don't have a place for our all of those little things. It's just nice to keep everything organized to what you actually need. Exactly.
Or our kitchen is the same way. We just built big empty cabinets, but you need to know what you're fitting in there before you build it. So be sure to think about that. Your storage needs to actually fit what you have. But I think those are the main 3 principles I think we take away. That you really should think about hosting and what you want your vibe to be and how comfortable you want it to be. You need to think about all the weather conditions and elements you're going to be running into. You need to think about what you actually need to store and build around that.
We've said this a couple of times in other videos, but I think the biggest thing to think about is what are your priorities. Really think hard about what are your top 3 priorities or something. Our priorities are probably going to be really different than yours. You may not want to host at all. Maybe this is for you to get away from everybody and be by yourself. You're probably still going to want some space to hang out and chill in your house, but you're not going to need as much as we're wanting, kind of thing. But I would just encourage you, really sit down, think hard about what are your priorities. Do you want a huge kitchen because you love cooking? Or do you not care about that much and you want a lot of storage for your camping gear and stuff like that? Just really, it's going to be different for everybody, and there's no right way to build a van. But these are like the things that we would recommend you really think
There
about.
are priorities, totally. Yeah. So that's it, guys. Thank you for watching this video. We are soon going to be embarking on this van rebuild. We're crazy stoked about it. So ready to do it.
Yeah.
It's coming in the next week or so, and we're going to be putting out weekly update videos on the build. One more thing I wanted to add here, guys, is that this video is sponsored by Squarespace. The reason we're working with them right now is that we are putting together a website for this van build. We really want this to be extremely valuable content, and one of the best things about Squarespace is that they're super easy to work with, and these websites are incredibly easy to build. So the website that we're going to be launching is actually built by me, not by the web designer Aubry. It's built by the guy who knows nothing about websites. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to show you guys how easy it is to build a website. So no matter what you're launching, whether it's business, whether you're launching a little tiny website about your little van build, Squarespace is a great place to do so. So we have a link in the description box. If you need an easy website and you don't want to go through all the trouble of hiring a designer and doing it, spend a couple of afternoons and do it yourself. Make a lovely website.
And I have used Squarespace in the past, and they have really great designs. So check out some of them. I think they have some new designs out this year, so check them out.
Give them a look, guys.
Yeah.
That's all we got to say, though. Again, more coming soon. This is just the beginning. Hopefully this is the video that'll kind of launch our little build series. We couldn't be more excited about it. So please stay tuned. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.